and go. We have limited time before the baby gets up from his nap, so let's make this quick. Hey there, Fiber Junkies! Welcome back to the Color Cauldron. I'm Johanna, the owner and dyer behind Potion Yarns and host of this podcast. It feels like it's been forever since I talked to you. It has been a few weeks, but it feels like longer. I've been super busy and I have been reducing my workload as much as I can lately with having a new baby this year. As a first-time mom, that has been just kind of crazy getting used to, and I'm amazed at how much I do every day and yet still don't get anything done. So I have been trying to be kind to myself and change my expectations, and part of that has been podcasting less often. I'm no longer able to do weekly videos. Haven't done that since the baby was born, really. And sometimes I was trying to stick to every other week uploading a video, and I know I've gotten off of that schedule a little bit as well, but I'm trying to still make sure I get at least 1 to 2 videos out a month. And today I wanted to take a little break from Saturday night at the movies and some of the other things we've been doing to catch you up on what I've been working on. Even though I don't have a lot of crafting time these days, I have managed to get a few things done, so I wanted to show you what I have been doing. Okay, so the first thing is I finished a project. I've actually finished a few things, and one of them I showed on Saturday night at the movies recently. But the thing that I am going to show you right now is my husband's scarf. I can't remember if I finished this last time, but I think I was getting close, but I wasn't done yet. But I started this a few months ago, and then I put it down for a while, and I picked it back up recently. I just really struggle with doing scarves because just a big long rectangle with no shaping or anything, even if it's a really interesting stitch pattern, I get bored after a while because it's just repetition over and over and over. And I tend to personally like my scarves really long so I can wrap them around a couple of times and tie them different ways. My husband is also the same way. He likes a longer scarf. He likes skinnier and longer, but he's also 6'3"-ishly, maybe a little taller, and so he needs a fairly long scarf anyways, just because of how long and lanky he is. So combining a very tall husband with a guy who likes to wrap it around a couple of different ways, and so he wants something kind of long, I have to make all of his scarves fairly intense. And this took a little bit of time, but I'm really glad I stuck with it because it looks amazing. I have been planning to block this for about 2 weeks. It's been done for almost a month already, and 2 weeks ago I was like, I'm gonna block that scarf today, and then I've said that every day since, and I still haven't done it. Whoops. Poor hubby. But, you know, who needs a scarf, a wool scarf in July? Certainly not him in Missouri, because it is hotter than blazes in our 100-plus-year-old house. So he definitely does not need a scarf right now. But I am going to try to get this blocked this week or next week at the latest so that he will have it come October, November when it starts getting nippy out. For those of you who haven't seen this before, I am using a pattern called the Antler Scarf from Son of Stitch and Bitch. I will put a link to that book in the description so that you can find this pattern. It's actually not that difficult once you get going. It is a little more intricate, so it's interesting. For those of you who are not beginners and you always get bored with scarves like I do, this is really, really good because it keeps you interested with all these cables. There's a cable on each side, and then there's a big horseshoe cable going up the middle that's supposed to look like antlers. I guess it kind of does. And it's just, you start at one end and go to the other end, so there's no like grafting or anything, but the pattern looks really, really cool either way that you hang it, so it doesn't matter how he wraps it, it's going to look really cool. And because of the cables on the side, it kind of curls in a little bit, although I expect that to get better with a light blocking, but I'm going to block it very lightly because I don't want to take away the plump crispness of the cables. I really like that plump, cushy cable on each side, and I don't want to flatten those out too much. So I'm going to just very lightly block it so that it lays a bit flatter but doesn't take away from that. So it still will curl a little on the edges, but that is the design of the pattern so that, because there is technically an ugly side, it's not ugly, but you know, it's not patterned. So if he wraps it a certain way, you'll see that. But by having the edges curl a little bit, it gives it a bit more interest and tends to make the front hang to the front a little bit more no matter how you wrap it. So Gonna hopefully get that blocked very soon, but it is all done. And for those of you that haven't seen it before, I am using my hand-dyed yarn. This is my Bombshell worsted base, which is my 100% superwash merino, just very, very plump and cushy and perfect for those big fat cables. And this is the colorway from my Kansas City collection called Barbecue Burnt Ends. So it's a really good like auburny reddish brown. So I really love how that knitted up. The next thing that I have finished is almost finished. Just like my scarf still needs to be blocked, this thing has been blocked and is finished, but I still have a few ends to weave in, and I need to sew buttons on to my Populux sweater. I have shown this one before on the podcast a few different times, and so I haven't actually done anything to it, I think, since the last time, except I have bought buttons. I can't remember if I blocked it last time or not, but it is definitely blocked by now. But I didn't have buttons the last time that I showed it, and I have purchased buttons. And I scoured the internet and the craft stores in my area looking for buttons, but partly due to the COVID shutdowns, a lot of the little antique malls and vintagey shops and things weren't open for a long time. Some of them still aren't, and even the ones that have opened, between having a baby at home, constantly being busy with my business and stuff, and not wanting to go anywhere that I don't absolutely need to when you have to wear a mask and deal with just all of the extra COVID precautions right now and stuff, a lot of times it's just like, you know what, if I don't have to go out, I'm not going to. So I wasn't able to look at any little like antique malls or anything like that for buttons, which I really like to do. So I had to kind of confine it to online shopping mostly, and then a quick trip to a Joann's recently. And so I ended up buying 2 different button groupings that I am trying to decide which one should go on this sweater. This is my hand-dyed yarn in my Dryad DK, which is superwash merino, cashmere, and nylon. So it's a very, very luxurious, cushy DK weight sweater. And the design by Andy Satterland, I will pop a link to her website below. The design is really, really fabulous to knit up. Not super difficult, but really beautifully written, easy to follow pattern, and I loved it. I specifically chose this pattern because it has really simple lace detail around a couple places in the sweater, but a lot of the body is stockinette, and I wanted something that would show off my hand-dyed yarn in this colorway called Unbirthday Party from my Alice in Wonderland collection. I really loved this bright speckle. It's a soft minty green with these really bright hot pink speckles and gold and brown, and I just really loved the like party feel. It feels like a cupcake with sprinkles, and I wanted something really cute and fun, but not too intricate so that I could use this bright speckly yarn, and I love how this knit up. I can't wait to get the ends woven in and the buttons on and wear this thing because it's absolutely stunning and it fits me beautifully. So again, the pattern link is below, but I wanted to show you the buttons I've picked out. I can't decide between these 2. The first one is from Joann Crafts, and they're these really pretty little like corally pink buttons. In my mind's eye, when I was knitting this, I was envisioning a vintage looking pink button. So this to me, even though it's a modern button, it's made to look vintage. Joann's has a lot of those kinds of like vintagey style or classic style buttons, and I wanted something like this. I love the texture on it. I absolutely adore the color. I think it looks really great with this yarn. So I feel like this would just look like candy on this cupcake sprinkle looking yarn. So I'm loving, loving, loving the color and everything. Now the downside to this is it is technically a modern button. It is plastic, so it's a lighter weight, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it doesn't have that like rich, luxurious vintage feel from a real vintage button, although a lot of real vintage buttons are plastic as well. But these ones are just kind of like cheap, lightweight. They are like easy care, machine washable and things, but I'd probably be hand washing this sweater anyways. But you know, they're cute. I think they fit it, but they give it more of like a cutesy vibe to me. The other option that I have are these fabulous true vintage buttons that I found on Etsy. I will try to find the shop link and put it below because I cannot remember right now the name of her shop. She mostly had like vintage clothing and vintage items, but she happened to have these when I was searching for vintage buttons. They came up because she took them off of a 1960s sweater or jacket, I think, and I'm not sure why. I don't remember if the sweater was like deteriorating and she wanted to save the buttons, or if she just wanted to like put different buttons on it or whatever. For whatever reason, she took these beautiful lucite and rhinestone buttons off of the sweater. And hopefully you can see that. I don't know if this is in focus, but, and I just really liked these. I really love how these give it a very more like classy, sophisticated vibe. I think they would, let's see if you can see them against the sweater. I think they would give it a really nice, like vintagey vibe, a really like glamorous feel. I was kind of going for that like late 50s, early 1960s Mad Men-esque. I wanted something that looked like, you know, Doris Day in Pillow Talk or something, very like dressed up and classy and chic, but not taking yourself too terribly seriously. But I really liked how this added sophistication to my sweater, whereas these ones I feel like are just fun, cutesy candy style. So leave me a comment, which one do you think I should go with? The authentic vintage lucite and rhinestone, or the vintage reproduction plastic pink? Candy or sophistication? Which one are you betting on? I seriously keep going back and forth. I cannot make up my mind. I do like how the little rhinestone dots on this one have a very playful feel, which goes along with the speckles in my yarn. But I still, like I said, it still gives it that sophisticated vibe, which I'm really, really into. So I need to make up my mind about buttons, finish weaving in the ends, and get those sewn on, and then the sweater is done. And I cannot wait to show it to you. As soon as I get it done, I'm gonna wear it on the podcast. Even if it's really hot, I'll put it on for a couple of minutes so you guys can see it, because it's delicious. And seriously, if you guys have never never knit with or crocheted with a cashmere blend yarn like superwash merino, cashmere, and nylon, I highly recommend it. I've worked with this base before several times. It's part of the reason why I keep it in my shop, even though it's a lot of extra work and money for me to have too many bases. I cannot bring myself to get rid of this one because it is so stunning to work with. It's cushy, it's delicious, it's bouncy, it shows textural stitches amazingly, but it's also beautiful in simple stockinette and garter. It blocks beautifully, but it keeps its bounce and memory and shape, and it just feels stunning on. I've made socks out of the sock version of this. I have made a hat out of this DK version. I've made shawls and sweaters out of this DK version. I'm obsessed. It is seriously amazing. So if you've been thinking about trying the Dryad DK base from my shop, you should seriously go try it because it's stunning. Okay, the next thing that I have to show you is something that I actually went really fast on, but it's not finished. I pulled some yarn out of stash that I've been hoarding for a few months. Not super long compared to some yarns in my stash, but last Christmas, my sweet husband knew that I am good friends with another indie dyer named Samantha, who owns Whimsical Wood Yarn Company. I will put a link to her shop below. Please go check it out and give her some love because her yarns are amazing and she's a phenomenal human being. So he knew that I really like her yarns. I had purchased a couple of her yarns before, and he had seen me talking about, well, he'd heard me talking about her as well as her yarns, and he'd seen me drooling over some of her yarns online. So for my Christmas gift this last year, he snuck onto her website and he picked out some yarn, which is always a tricky thing for a non-knitter to pick out yarn for you. But he's been around me enough and learned enough about my business that he was feeling like he could confidently pick something out. And he chose 3 skeins of her single ply fingering yarn. And he was smart enough to get 3 skeins in fingering so that I would have more options of like making a bigger project. So he got 3 skeins of the same color instead of doing like 1 skein of each color. Even though I love single skeins all the time and I can always find a project for them, I do like getting larger quantities so that I have more options of like a garment or a bigger shawl or something along those lines. So well done, hubby. And he chose a yarn called Tiger Venom, and here is what it looks like caked up. And it's basically a speckle yarn, but it has these blotches. That sounds really gross, like they're not dyed beautifully. It's beautifully dyed, but it has these like short runs of color that are like a bright orange, kind of pumpkin-y orange, probably about that long or maybe a little bit longer, something like that. And then a bunch of white spaces still showing, and then it's punctuated by all these short bursts of speckles of this bluish gray color. And so it kind of looks like tiger stripes when it's all caked up. And I I really liked it, but I was really struggling when I first got it to envision what I would make out of it. Because when I get that much yarn all in one color, my first thing to think of is, oh, I should make a sweater. But because of the busy nature of the dyeing job, I didn't want the stitch pattern to get overwhelmed, but I also didn't want it to look too like stripy or blotchy on me and make me look a little like dumpy. So I wanted to make sure I picked the right pattern to show off this beautifully dyed yarn. So it took me months of debating back and forth, but I finally chose a pattern that I will put a link to below. I know you can get it on Ravelry. I'm not sure about other areas, but I'll see if I can find it somewhere else. But it's called the Astrid top, and I'm not going to try to say the name other than her name is Astrid of the designer. I won't try to butcher her last name because it's in another language, I believe, but it's a fairly simple little top. It is knit in pieces, which is not my favorite, but I do pieces and sew them together on occasion, and I understand that for some garments you really need them. This one I think she could have gotten away by doing it in the round, but it's not written that way, and I debated rewriting the pattern in the round so that I wouldn't have to sew it together. But at the time I cast it on, I was looking for something just really easy and fun and relaxing while I was watching TV with my husband or something like that. And I didn't want to have to like put a lot of brain power and mathematical skills and energy into rewriting a pattern. So I just did it in pieces as written. The body is started at the bottom of the hem, and you basically just knit this chevron pattern, which is really easy. It's interesting enough to keep you interested, but it's easy. And so you knit this chevron piece, and then about the time that you get up to around the waistline or just under the bust, you switch to stockinette, and there's a little bit of shaping for the armholes and the neckline. This is the front of the sweater, and then you do an almost identical back, and then 2 little cap sleeves. So the sleeves are just these little short sleeves that you knit, and then they will get fit into the armhole kind of like that. So they're going to be little short sleeves. So it's just like a little lightweight t-shirt. This would be really stunning in a cotton or linen blend yarn for like a summery top. This is a superwash merino, but it's a single ply and it's a light fingering, so it's very like loose and drapey, and then you knit it on like a size 4 or 5 needle, so it's fairly open. It's not really heavy. It's going to be more of like a light spring or early fall kind of top. You could even wear it in the summer in air conditioning or in climates that aren't super muggy. So I'm hoping that I can get it on here before the summer's over, but I do need to block it and sew it up and then weave in the ends. I haven't done any of that part yet, but I got all the pieces knitted. I just need to put it together, which is my least favorite part. So I'm kind of putting it off right now, but I'm hoping to have like a finishing day very soon where I get some of these things blocked, buttons sewn on, seams sewn up, etc., etc. Because I have a couple others that I'm not going to show you right now because I've already shown them on the podcast, or I'm going to for a Saturday night at the movies, and they're waiting to be sewn up or have buttons on as well. So I really do need to have a finishing day very soon. The next thing I'm working on is kind of boring and embarrassing to have to show you again because I've already shown this project like 4 times on the podcast over the last like year and a half. Because it's that bad. I keep putting it off. I'm sure you longtime watchers of the podcast will remember these socks that I've shown. I did these for a Saturday night at the movies, plus I just showed them on what I've been working on a couple of times. But they have these lovely cable diamonds up the back with moss stitch in the middle, and then this, what's called a speckled rib. Very textural, easy ribbing across the leg and the top of the foot, and then just a stockinette bottom of the foot. The thing is, these socks look so interesting with this cool design up the back of the leg, and they're knit cuff down. So I knit the first one a while ago, and then I put it down, and I had second sock syndrome so dang bad that I like didn't pick it up for months and months and months at a time. I finally picked it up in this last spring and was like, I'm gonna finish this pair of socks if it kills me. And I started working on it. I was really struggling to get into it though, and I'd remembered hating this first sock. By the time I finished the heel turn and got like maybe half an inch or so down the foot, I was like, I hate this pattern and I just want to throw it in the garbage and never finish it. But I made myself stick it out. I finally finished it, and then that was when I put it down for months on end because I just couldn't take it. So I remembered that, and I had a bad taste in my mouth and was like, oh, I hate that pattern. I do not want to knit that other sock, but I don't want to waste this hand-dyed yarn. This is some of my hand-dyed yarn, and I didn't want to waste it. Plus, it did look really pretty, and I need more socks in my wardrobe because I've just had a bunch of old pairs that fell apart, and I had to get rid of them. So I finally stuck it out and started it. And when I cast this on, the ribbing was a bit rough in the cuff, but it didn't last that long. And then I got into the leg, and I was like zipping along, and I'm like, these are actually fun. Why did I hate these? These are really cool. I just needed a break. Yeah, big words, famous last words. I finished the heel turn with this cute little cable down the back of the heel. I got the heel totally turned, start on the foot, and less than a half an inch in, I'm like, I hate these dang things. I just want to I hate them. I just want to rip them apart. I don't want to finish these things. But I kept thinking, I do though, and I'm so close to having a new pair of socks. And this yarn is nice. I don't want to waste it. So I stuck it out. And the way that I would do it is, I remember when I first picked these back up after months, I tried this finished sock on. And once I got it on my foot, it felt amazing. I was like, these socks are so comfortable and amazing. And it looked stunning. It fit me perfectly. And I was like, okay, I want to wear these socks so badly that I'm going to cast on the other one and or finish it if it kills me. So every time I get to the point where I don't want to wear it or finish it, I put it on, remind myself how much I want to wear this pair, and I knit at least a couple of rows. I am now to the stage where I'm bribing myself. If I complete 3 rounds or 5 rounds or whatever it is I set for my goal that day, if I complete 3 rounds on the foot, then I can put it away and work on the new shawl I cast on, or a fun sweater, or spinning on my wheel, or something else. So I'm bribing myself, but I will finish this dang thing, but I still have a ways to go. I'm trying to get the foot down to at least there, if not matching the length of the leg. I got a ways to go. So send me your best tips and tricks in the comments of how I'm going to finish these dang socks. Bribing with chocolate, bribing with other knitting projects are acceptable, but I need to finish them. Okay, so for the fun new thing I've cast on, now that I've shown you how I really have little knitting time and yet constantly keep knitting things, so I keep showing you the same projects over and over, it seems. Let me show you the new thing I cast on. I'm obsessed with this new thing for a number of reasons. First of all, it's so dang pretty. Look at this thing. It is so pretty, I can't even stand it. I'm absolutely, completely, 100% in love. It's so pretty. Secondly of all, it's a really fun pattern. It's actually pretty easy. It looks really intricate, but it's really easy because you only use one color at a time, and then the stitch pattern makes it look like you're doing like a complicated color work pattern, but you're really not. You're just doing 2 rows in one color, then switching 2 rows in the other color, and the stitch pattern you're using creates this fun texture that makes it look very intricate. And then down here it's just stockinette. Within every few rows you do 2 rows of a new color, and you just carry them up the side. So it's a 3-color shawl. You started at the little point, and then we're going to a bigger end. This came from Knit Scene magazine. So part of the other reason I am obsessed with this pattern is everything came from Stash. This is actually I think this came this year, like in the spring or summer or something, but so it's not a super old magazine, but I used to have a subscription to Knit Scene. I no longer have it, but Knit Scene magazine had this pattern in their spring or summer issue. It's called the Gemstones Shawl by, I think it's Lana Joyce, something like that, Lana Joyce. It's really, really pretty, but I already had the pattern in a magazine that I had purchased, so I wasn't buying any new patterns or anything. I was using up something that I'd admittedly only been stashing for a few months, but was still something I had around the house and was stashing. And then all 3 of the yarns I'm using came out of my stash. So I went stash diving, and none of these are mine. They're all from other dyers, and I am just really excited because I had single skeins of each of these, and so I'm excited to find ways to use up these beautiful yarns I've been hoarding for a while. So this first one is a Whimsical Wood yarn from Samantha again. This was my treat to myself this last year for my birthday. I just had a baby, and my birthday was in November. He was only 4 weeks old at my birthday, and I wanted something to spoil myself because my life, the first 4 months of my son's life, was extremely tough. We had a lot of hurdles to get through, as most first-time moms do, but we had some seriously big hurdles and hospital trips and things, and everyone's fine now, but the first month or 2 especially, but really the first 4 months were rough. So I wanted something to kind of reward myself for making it through the first 4 weeks of my son's life, and it was my birthday too. So Samantha last year did these Zodiac yarns, where she did each of the zodiac signs throughout the year for a limited time. You could get them dyed to order on your choice of base yarn, and I selected her Sparkle single ply. So this is a merino single ply with stellina in it, because I love a good sparkle, and it was my birthday, so celebration. And this is the Scorpio color, which is my sign. I just really, really loved how all the deep, dark, awesome shades. It's so, so pretty. So I've only had that one since November. And then I have had this one for a few years now, 2 or 3 years now. This was a one-of-a-kind from Woolenvine Yarns. Kristen at Woolenvine made this a couple years ago. She was working on a mauve color, and she did several batches of 1 or 2 skeins each, testing out different recipes before she settled on a final recipe. And so when she uploaded them to her shop, she had a shop update where she was like, hey, I've got a bunch of random 1 or 2 of a kind test yarns that didn't make the final cut, but they're still really pretty. So you can buy a mystery skein for a slightly discounted rate, and you don't get to pick which one you get. You just get one of the random ones. And I love a good mystery skein, so I purchased one of them along with some other yarns of hers, including the final version. And this one is quite a bit different, because the final version was very like purpley mauve-ish. This one is really more of a brown. It's like a pinky brown, and it's called Cup of Tea, which is very, very appropriate, because it looks like a very light, soft brown, like tea with milk in it. And it's a gold stellina base, so again, sparkly. And it's just so pretty. It was a really nice neutral, and I'd been hoarding it for a couple of years and just had no idea what to use it on. And I thought these two just looked so pretty together. And then for my final color, I selected another skein that has been in my stash for ages, probably more than 10 years. And this one has a special story, because this is a Malabrigo sock skein. I believe the color is called Solis, it's something like that. It's just a teal semi-solid. And there's nothing particularly special about it. It is Malabrigo, which is awesome, but not, not like I know the dyer personally or anything. But I bought this ages ago, and then I caked it up for a project, decided not to use it at the last minute, put it back in my stash, and then I lost it because we were moving, and we moved like twice since then, and I thought it was gone for forever. And I was like, man, I never got to use that really pretty teal yarn from Malabrigo. Oh well, at least it was Malabrigo. It wasn't like the most expensive sock yarn in the world, but still, I'm bummed, whatever. So I'd given up on it years ago, and then I just found it a few months ago, back when I was pregnant, right before I had my son. I was moving a bunch of things around and cleaning a bunch of stuff out, and I opened this little box thing that I had stashed away in a closet or something, and guess what was nestled inside? All caked up and ready to go. This sock yarn. So I got very excited to find it. I put it back in stash with my other yarns so I wouldn't lose it again, and then I needed something to complement these two beautiful colors, and this seemed like the perfect choice. And now that I'm knitting them all up together, I'd say it is the perfect choice. I'm obsessed with these colors. They look so pretty together. Also, if you're not already following my Instagram or Facebook pages, you should definitely check those out, because I post a lot of in-process knitting and spinning, especially when I'm working with my own hand-dyed things. And I'll post little videos on there as well on my IGTV channel, where sometimes you can see my wheel in action, or you can see me talking about a color or how to choose colors, or see me caking up yarns and things. So definitely give those pages a like and a follow. Those links are below in the description box as well. And while you're at it, don't forget to hit subscribe to my channel and make sure that the bell is turned on so you get all the notifications and you don't ever miss an episode. We do a lot of fun things over here on the podcast. In addition to talking about my knitting and spinning and crafting journeys, I also do Saturday Night at the Movies, where we do a film review that features some type of fiber arts in it once a month or so, and then we pair it with a pattern that is reminiscent of the era or the theme of the movie or the character in the movie or something like that. So it's a really fun way to find some different patterns, as well as to get some fun viewing for your stay at home during COVID times. You can watch some movies that not only are fun movies, but feature fiber arts. Who wouldn't love that? I hope you guys are having a great rest of your summer. I will talk to you later, but it is now time to cast off. Love you.